This is my first stop on Regents tour that I'm going to be doing all week long. The emphasis on it is I think the legislature needs to continue the funding level that we currently have. It's not an increase in funding, it's flat funding, but it's not a decrease either. And I think it's key that we continue to fund the Regents, which is schools like Wichita State, but it's also junior colleges, community colleges, technical schools throughout the state of Kansas. And my point really is we don't have to choose. We can fund higher education in the state of Kansas at the current levels, and we can have a competitive tax structure. We don't have to choose on this. But to do that, we're going to have to move forward. We're going to have to continue the sales tax where it is now. We're going to have to continue on the changes to move to a flat tax system. But we can do this. And I think it's the wrong way for us to be looking at cutting higher education. And if I could quote President Bardot, it really hurts momentum. It's a momentum killer. Well, you've got nice momentum going here at WSU, which after the basketball tournament, which was fabulous, you want to build on that. And we can build on the things that are happening here, and we don't need that momentum to subside. We need to grow. And that's what I'm pushing, and I think we got a good chance of getting this on through. Happy to try to take some questions.
Did you go on a tour today? What did your visit here at Wichita State consist of? And what are you looking at, or what are leaders telling you?
Yeah, what I'm doing at a number of campuses, different things at different places, but here we sat and we visited about what are the impacts here. The point a number of people made was in 2008, since 2008, higher education has taken a funding cut. Now that was prior to my administration, but I think we need to stabilize the funding, and so we discussed its impact if you did have a funding cut for higher education in the state of Kansas, which I don't think we should do.
Did you hear anything today from leaders that surprised you, that you didn't know, or are things kind of on the track that you expected?
It didn't surprise me, but I was impressed. We've got a lot of very positive things happening in higher education in the state of Kansas. We've got some momentum going, and it's just we shouldn't have that momentum busted, and we don't need to do that. A lot of innovative programs coming here. There's an enthusiasm on campus about some of the proposals that are moving forward, and it just let's not squelch that.
And at this point in time, it seems like a lot of schools for higher education are cutting. We're not cutting here in Kansas. We're staying flat. What does that say? Maybe about the state that Kansas is in budget-wise right now, or where we're going?
Yeah, the overall, we're in good budget conditions if we move forward on the tax proposal I put forward. If we don't, we're going to have some real challenges, is basically what it amounts to here. I came in, we had a big budget hole. I came in, they were projecting $500 million budget hole. If we do what I'm suggesting, we can maintain roughly a $400 million surplus balance at the end of the years. So we can do this. It just will take the actions that we need. We have an excellent legislature. The legislature's great. Has a number of new faces that are in it, that people that haven't studied higher education budgets before have a lot of questions. Those are all legitimate. But I just think at the end of the day, we need to keep it at a stable funding level. President Bardot, either the regents, we have two of the regents here that you could ask either question.
Happy to answer any questions. I think the biggest issues that we're facing are that as you try to move the university to be more responsive to the needs of the people of the state, that you're going to emphasize areas of the institution that other states also are emphasizing. And so to go out and hire in those fields is increasingly costly. If we can stabilize our budget from the state, it allows us to rearrange and to make sure that we have the money to go after those positions. If you look at just engineers, for example, the beginning engineer average salary nationally 2 years ago was $72,000. This year it's over $80,000, and then you have to add to that their startup packages. So as we're trying to hire a quarter of our engineering faculty, we're seeing cost changes. The same is going on in business, the same is going on in areas of healthcare, and there's some areas of healthcare where even if we go to market and even if we go out with high salaries, we're not finding the people because there are real limits nowadays. So I think it's important that we stress that this isn't just about a matter of can you find efficiencies. It's a fundamental question of what do you want higher education to do? What kind of role do you want to play in the future of the state? And what we know is states that invest in higher education have competitive tax policies, have good infrastructure, are the ones that are going to grow. And those that don't have those three things, they can have any one of them and it isn't going to work. You put all three together and you've got something to work with.
And I would just say some basics that I think I'm hoping the public and legislators realize that since 2008 to 2012, we've taken an 11% cut. So we're basically at the 2002 funding level. And then on the other hand, if you look at inflation, and I think even the Kansas Policy Institute has used CPI, inflation is 25% during that 10-year period. And that formula just doesn't work if you want to grow jobs and fill jobs with higher paying wages and create new jobs. So I appreciate the governor's stance on no cuts, let's go forward.
And I would just add to that, the regions have from the beginning supported the governor's budget as far as higher education, and I appreciate his support to keep funding level. The legislature, they are learning about the issue, and that's great. But I would like to echo what Regent Downey-Schmidt said about the cuts, that we've had 11%. We are doing a more efficient job. And good faculty is expensive. We have NIAR, where they want us to commercialize more research, and to do that takes funding. And so good faculty is not cheap, good programs are not cheap, and we're trying to do everything we can to promote economic development in the state.
What were maybe 2 or 3 of the things you most wanted the governor to know during his visit today?
I think one of the advantages we've had with this governor is this is not his first trip to campus. And so part of it is, I think, reiterating what we've been talking about since I came. The university is about trying to meet the needs of the people of the state. That means, from our perspective, we have to be much more active on an ongoing basis in technology-based economic development, in serving the healthcare needs of the people, making sure that their core education in the humanities and the social sciences, where you learn the basics of critical thinking and communication, that those are all really solid. That's where we're focusing as a university, that's where we're pushing, and it takes the budget that we have to make that happen. So we're rearranging, we're making sure that the priorities are the things we're funding, and I think that's what we've been talking to the governor about since we first met, right after I was appointed, and it hasn't really changed. I think the difference is that we're now saying, don't slow us down. We're making the right moves. The institution is going forward. Don't slow us down.
Well, I think the other assumption is that perhaps some policymakers think that the regents, the universities, really now need to start looking at cuts. Well, when I came on the board in 2007, the chairman's goal that whole year was efficiency. All CEOs from all levels of institutions made reports to us, everything from energy contracts to collapsing departments to laying off faculty. And then we had them go across the street and share all that information with the legislators. So every one of these CEOs has been very diligent about finding ways to save money and be efficient on their campuses.
Yeah, I'd say on the KU Med Center facility here in Wichita, I do not want to see that go to a 2-year program. I want to see it maintained as a 4-year program, and with the number of students that they currently have, and not cutting students. We don't need to cut that. If we have base state aid, if we have flat funding, that program can continue as is and will continue as is. And I think we really need to do that. It's a key program for Wichita. It's also a key program for a lot of the rural areas of the state that depend on the medical docs produced from that program to go outstate in more of the rural areas of the state that they more likely tend to go to. And we just, it would be setting us back again. I mean, and we don't need to do that.
Well, the regions are solidly behind that program, as is KU. And that's why this plan to be able to avoid cuts is really important. But we're highly committed to that.
Governor, you have time for one more question before we need to.
I'm just curious, when people talk about cuts, they think about tighten up the belt. Does that mean it gets passed on to the student with higher tuition rates? I mean, how does that work into the equation of higher education?
You've got the presidents, the CEOs of these campuses that are managing several different flow areas where funds come into, and part of that is student tuition fees. Over time, I guess, is if you don't get enough state funding in, you've got to make it up for somewhere. Probably tuition is a piece of it. Again, we don't need to go there. Well, let's keep where we are right now, so that you don't have that added pressure on students.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.